Gunsmoke, which I assume is pronounced without the dot, was released in arcades in 1985 and brought to the NES in 1988. The dot in the title is presumably to differentiate it from the popular television series that it is not based on or affiliated with in any way, which means it probably should have been called something else entirely, but it's a cool title, so I digress. I really dig the western setting of this game. Most scrolling shooters in the 80s were space-themed. It also has an interesting game mechanic that allows you to shoot to the left with the B button and to the right with the A button, and to shoot in the center by hitting them both at once. Shooting directly in front of you is occasionally useful, but I usually only shoot diagonally because I find hitting both buttons at once to be a little clumsy. This would be a great game to play with a Sega Genesis controller, since it had 3 buttons. For the most part, though, controls are very tight and responsive. Aside from the setting and the unique control scheme, this is a pretty typical 1980s vertical scrolling shooter. The screen, and you by extension, are constantly on the move, you shoot an endless wave of bad guys, and you have the opportunity to shoot barrels and find various power-ups and cash, which can be spent on stronger guns and other items. The coolest power-up you can pick up is the POW, which drops every enemy on the screen. But when it comes to guns, different people have different opinions on them, so experiment a little and see which ones you like. The other weapon you can buy is the Smart Bomb, which when equipped, explodes when you take a hit, wiping out everyone on the screen. So it's basically a POW combined with a hit point. Then there's the Horse, which kicks ass. It'll take a few hits for you until it bites the dust. It can also be found in some of the barrels, hilariously enough. Oh yeah, one more unique thing. In order to face the boss, you need to collect the wanted poster, or else the stage will just loop endlessly. Each stage has a wanted poster hidden in a specific spot on the map, or they can be bought from the weapons dealers you run into throughout the level. I'd recommend trying to find the poster to save your cash for guns, ammo, smart bombs, and horses. Use the internet to locate them if you have to. It's not the 80s anymore. The bosses are all pretty cool, and most require some level of strategy to deal with. That is, of course, a good thing. I guess you can technically beat all of them just by firing away, but in my experience, that usually is not the best way to go about it. If you're just shooting blind, it will take luck to hit their weak spots. Since all of the boss fights are filled with normal enemies as well, you want to take out the boss as quickly as possible to avoid being killed by one of the many others in the swarm. This is a very difficult game. At least, it was for me. I'm generally not too great at shoot-'em-ups. I found it necessary to cheat by using the turbo buttons on the NES Advantage. The swarms of enemies in later stages are so constant that you're basically going to be tapping the fire buttons incessantly if you're not using a turbo controller. It makes my thumb feel like it's gonna fall off, so call it a cop-out if you want, but I'm sticking with the turbo buttons for this one. Stage 4 has a name that will be instantly recognizable to fans of a certain Nintendo franchise, and it's here where things get especially ridiculous. Large portions of the screen are unavailable for you to walk on because of the massive mountain ranges which are full of snipers, so your path is very narrow. Plus the enemies start coming up from the bottom of the screen as well as down from the top. I find this very frustrating because there is no way to shoot down, you're just trapped. I wouldn't have a problem with enemies coming in from the top and making their way down there, because then it would be my fault for allowing them to get behind me, but this is just unfair. The sixth and final stage is, appropriately, the most difficult of the bunch. It doesn't look hard, but I promise it is. It's extremely long, the enemy waves are relentless, and you're very liable to get stuck on the tombstones which are placed everywhere. If you have a special item equipped at the time of your death, you lose it, but provided that you have extra lives, you start back directly where you died. When you lose all of your lives, you get a game over screen, but despite that, you get to start at the beginning of the level that you died on, rather than go all the way back to the beginning. You do lose every bit of your special items and cash, however, and if you're deep into the game, it's basically impossible to earn back enough money to buy any special weapons, smart bombs, and horses. I was unable to make it to the end of the last stage with only basic weapons, so I haven't seen the final boss, at least not yet. I think the only way I could beat this game is by practicing the first 5 stages a lot, to have a lot of extra lives stocked up for the end. Despite the difficulty I had with this game, I definitely enjoyed it and would recommend it. It's probably the best scrolling shooter on the NES that I know of, and I'm sure the difficulty is more manageable for someone with more experience with these types of games than me. There are a lot of cool little touches that make the game worth playing. A control scheme you won't find anywhere else, the creative items like the smart bomb, and the sick music on Stage 3. Also, how's that for a setting? I can't pronounce the name of this stage with any degree of confidence, so I just call it Native American Genocide. Gunsmoke was popular enough for Capcom, many years later, to approach Angel Studios to develop a spiritual successor called SWAT, which stood for Spaghetti Western Action Team. Development continued when Angel Studios was bought out by Rockstar Games, and renamed Rockstar San Diego. The game was eventually released as Red Dead Revolver. Yes, that's right, the predecessor to Red Dead Redemption. So, in a way, Gunsmoke is the first Red Dead game, even though it has basically nothing to do with it aside from the Western setting. If you'd like to give this game a try and don't own an NES, exact replicas of the original arcade version are available on various Capcom compilations released for the PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, Xbox, and Xbox 360. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, leaving a thumbs up, sharing, and ringing the bell so you don't miss any future videos. This has been a Leaky Faucet review. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.